morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad to see the people in the room, and also we've got 9 people online already, and I'm going to introduce a few things here. I'm Meredith Cordett with the Forums team and the Racial Justice team. We've got folks still arriving here. And I want to welcome everybody in both of our environments, and I'm going to try something new. This was Sally Munger's suggestion that we take some time, and would you like? Thank you.
Oh, you're going to kneel for us.
Yeah, I want to share with the people online, everybody who's here in the room. So wave, everybody. Trying to make that connection a little bit more. Alrighty, thank you. So our program today, as usual, will run until around 10:15, and then we'll start transitioning over to our 10:30 service. And yes, everybody, welcome to join the service. So today it is my honor to introduce our guest from the Duluth branch of the NAACP. This is Minnesota's largest NAACP branch. It's a point of pride for Duluth, and the UUCD's Woven Basket recipient for January. Please give generously today's service and throughout the month. It all goes to NAACP. I have been so looking forward to this conversation and to learning more about how we as UUs can work alongside the NAACP in building community power to eliminate systemic racism in the Northland and disrupt the status quo. So our guest today has a day job. The NAACP is a volunteer-run organization. Depends on all of us to work as an organization. And our president, Classy Dudley, works also at the Community Action Duluth, where she's executive director in addition to her presidential role at the NAACP. There's so much we could say about President Dudley. She's well known throughout the Northland as a critical voice in the fight for racial equity, and is an alum of the inaugural class of Next Gen, a leadership development program led by the NAACP National Board of Directors. So please join me in welcoming President Dudley as we learn more about this important work and how our congregation can show up.
Well, thank you for having me. This isn't the first time I've been to your beautiful church. It's beautiful here, and I appreciate always coming and speaking to you and enjoying. I vote here actually, so it's always great coming up here. Every vote, we got to make sure we vote, right? My name is Classy Dudley. I was born and raised here in Duluth, Minnesota. That can be important to some people, some Duluthians, right? And I got involved in the NAACP many, many years ago when I was realizing the injustice that I was facing myself and the people around me. So while I was born and raised in Duluth, I spent some time in Garland, a little suburb outside of Dallas, Texas. And I just remember the feeling of not being alone. Not being the only Black person in the room. I remember seeing my teachers being teachers of color, and not just Black, right? I had from all different races, all different ethnicities, all different religions. It was a norm there from the area I was in. I remember seeing statues of people who look like me, art of people who look like me. My doctor, a pediatrician, was a Black female doctor. We had, a lawyer. One of my dad's best friends was a judge who was also Black. So I just remember seeing more of what I could be. And when we moved back to Duluth, because that's where our family is and our roots are here, I just remember that feeling deep down in my gut of this isn't right. And I had to really, really dig into myself to understand why I felt that way. And once I did that and I talked to my father and I talked to some of my friends and I even talked to my siblings about this, I realized that I didn't have that same community that I did in Dallas that I have here. And I don't know if any of you have heard that saying that a child who doesn't feel that warmth will burn the city to get that warmth. I felt like that was me, and I needed to do some burning in order to build a community that I could be a part of, and that would welcome me. So where do you start with that, right? I had the same issue that many of you sitting here today have, because I always get that. Classy, how do I get involved? Classy, how do we support? Classy, I was like, man, I had to figure out the same way you guys did, okay? Then you guys will have to. I looked around, I said, what is doing the work that I want to see in our community? What will be helping our community? And when I found the NAACP, not just locally, I found that there was regionally, there were state organizations, it was a national organization, and that the organization was founded in systemic change. And I've been a part of many, many groups in Duluth. I've been a part of many college groups at U of D. I've been a part of the TFL, as we know, as some of you may know. I've been a part of the green climate change initiatives that we had. So I've been in groups trying to see, and what I've seen is that a lot of them, not saying that any of these that I named, but I'm saying a lot of these groups that are focusing on the initiatives that are right here, right now, right? We're focusing on initiatives that are stopping the issue at hand, but not what is causing the issue. And so when I found the NAACP, the fact that their mission is to work on systemic issues and policy changes, I knew that was something that Duluth needed right there. It is so easy, we get in so many meetings of change that happens immediate for right here, right now, but we don't look at what is causing those issues. A wise man many moons ago once told me, that saying of the babies in the river, and they're fishing, they're finding babies in the river, and they're pulling them out, and they're pulling them out, and then finally someone just stops and says, I'm gonna go find the person who's throwing these babies in the river, so we don't have to do this anymore. That's the team that I wanted to be a part of. So I looked into the NAACP and I said, this is what we need. This is an organization that we need to strengthen, that we need to revitalize, and that we need strong in our community. And here I am, many years later. This is my second term as president of the Duluth NAACP. We've had many great wins. We've built the Crisis Center. That is a crisis center that helps people in need, that is non-punitive and separate from police. So yeah, a neighbor dispute, right? You're seeing a homeless man who might not be doing, a man who is facing homelessness, who is out on the streets and maybe walking into the streets. Instead of calling the police, who they might have a negative interaction with or have a negative connotation with, we can call the crisis line that can give them those services that they may need right on the spot. So that's something that the NAACP, we didn't create that, right? I want to be clear that we don't create new systems. We disrupt the systems that we currently have. And then we find people like you to lead those initiatives, right? Like you don't see the NAACP out there doing crisis work. We do rapid response. We don't do crisis work because we don't have that capacity. We're all volunteers. Thank God the Crisis Center gets paid. And thank the Lord that we have a city council that voted in over $500,000 for that crisis response that will be in the city's legislation forever, every year. So we're really happy for the work that we've done in that realm. We've also had some really hard times. How many of you know the case we're working on with like Stephen Cooper, the felon who turned in a gun and got arrested for turning in a gun, even though he turned it in willingly, right? And we're still fighting that case today. Something that we think should be a simple ask to our local official and our people who are in power. You want guns off the street, same as I, then that means you can't arrest people who are turning in these guns, right? It's simple as that. The law makes things difficult, and we can say, well, according to today's law, doesn't matter if you're turning it in. You have possession of it, you are now need to be reincarcerated. Well, my understanding of prison and jail is it's supposed to be something that rehabilitates people. And I say that in quotes because that's not the case in many cases. But how are we really trying to rehabilitate somebody who is turning in a gun, trying to get it off the street? You would have been better off throwing it in a ditch and wouldn't have to be going through year-long court cases and year-long litigations and year-long bringing up this trauma in this when he just wants to live his life. So those are just a few of the things that we've been working on and continue to work on. I also look at the law and I say, hey, less than 50 years ago, I couldn't walk outside after sundown. That was the law. The law was not moral, the law was not ethical, the law was not just. So I don't abide by this is the law or this is the standard. The NAACP locally, statewide, regionally, nationally, we're here to break that status quo. And it's helping all of us. That's the thing that I want you, if you leave with anything today besides join us in this fight, it's helping every single one of us. We just got a pretextual stop policy passed by our city. Super excited. Thank you. Since my presidency, that was a fight. So this is going on for 3 years now. We've been pushing for pretextual stop ends. For those of you who are wondering a pretextual stop, I define pretextual stops as a tax on the poor, right? We're pulling over people who already can't afford tabs and giving them a ticket, who can't afford that ticket, who gets their license suspended, who can't afford to reapply for their license to get suspended or can't afford to take a day off of work. So they drive, they get pulled over. Not only is their car towed, now they're arrested. Or even if it's a nice cop, they're left on the street to try and get home. If it's a really nice cop, they might give them a ride. But that's besides the point. It's a tax on the poor. It's anything that is not a public safety issue when we're stopping them is a pretextual stop. So a broken taillight, those things that might dangle from your mirror, right? And we were seeing that in our city, that even though African American and Black heritage folks were making up then at that time less than 2% of the population here, they were making more than 57% of those pretextual stops. That's 1 in 5 compared to 1 in 15. So those were the things that we were trying to stop. And what we were trying to educate the city on is that it doesn't just affect me. It doesn't just affect people who look like me, right? It affects everybody. Can I say it? Black people aren't the only people poor here, right? I mean, Black people aren't the only people targeted here. So it's something that we're trying to uplift the people at the bottom, but it uplifts everybody and it affects everybody. And I think that's a message that our NAACP has pushed very hard in our community, and that's why we are the biggest NAACP in the state of Minnesota. It's an issue for everybody. You don't have to look like me to be involved in the NAACP. In fact, I make it a point every year. I say it every year. Everybody's like, why, Leslie? Why aren't you at MLK breakfast? I'm trying to sleep. Honestly, MLK, like, that's a day for you guys to work, not me. I work every day, 365 days a week, to the NAACP for free. If it is one day you are showing up, then please show up morning, night, and afternoon.
Here's the info. I'm going to pass it around.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, but I don't need to come to a breakfast to show I support. What I need to come to is a rally to support Stephen Cooper, right? I don't need to go to, you know, an MLK breakfast to show that I support a mission of Dr. Reverend MLK. I need to show up to help take these minutes to make sure we're staying on track with our initiatives, right? I need to show up to our decriminalized color events to tell our mayor that this is an issue affecting our city at a higher rate than the surrounding areas. You know, I get so frustrated with our city because we often are doing things retroactively instead of proactively, right? We would be so much better off if we listened to our people who are in pain in our city and say, how do we fix this and how do we fix it fast? If anybody tells you that it takes time, that's because it takes time for them to learn, for them to take their time, for them to, you know, have their meetings. It doesn't take time for somebody to get pulled over and arrested or thrown in jail for turning in a gun, right? That was quick. Where was the time for that to adjust that situation? That's the stuff that I'm constantly seeing in our city. I'm constantly having an issue with when we're trying to get people to show up and say this matters. Because it doesn't just affect us, it affects us all. And so us being the biggest NAACP in the state of Minnesota, I need the people who sign up to actually show up. I need us to march alongside us. Now I get people like, Classy, I'm not always good at this. I get nervous. I don't know what to say. I sometimes put my foot in my mouth. Like I get nervous. I don't think this is a safe space for me. I agree. I feel the same way. If you would have asked me 3 years ago, this was not the position I wanted. This was the position I felt like needed to happen. I felt we needed to have somebody to be stronger in the fight for social justice here. Somebody who was unapologetic and somebody who said something that not everybody liked to hear. I am not a politician. I am, you know, not your significant other. And sometimes I'm not your friend, but I'm going to say what needs to be said. And sometimes it's gonna hurt. It hurts me too. And the reason I am so blunt and not this Minnesota nice that we like to be sometimes is because we don't have the time to wait. We don't have the time to take time. People are angry. People are starving here and people are dying. And it just makes me mad. And I'm at a point of privilege in my life where I'm not suffering through any of this. And since I'm not suffering through any of this, what I can do is I can be their voice and I can help give this message to you guys today and to people tomorrow and to anybody else who needs to hear this. Because it's time to be frank about what's going on in our city, and it's not pretty. And if we're not seeing it, it's because we're not involved. And I need us to get involved to see it. If you saw how many rapid response calls we get, you would want to join the NAACP because you would know we are understaffed and a staff that's all volunteer, right? There's so many initiatives going on, but the wonderful thing about the NAACP is we are a committee, we are an organization that has committees focused in every aspect of a person's life, right? We have a criminal justice committee, we have an education committee, we have a health committee, we have an environmental committee. We have committees to touch them because in each realm of these lives, of these aspects of one's life, we know that the people who are in pain are people of color, are people who are experiencing homelessness, are people who are experiencing being in poverty. And that's what we're fighting for. Yes.
I did forget at the beginning, President Dudley says that she loves questions. And so I want to invite questions both in the room, and then I'm having a little trouble with the chat. And so if you have a question online, please type it into the chat, and then a friend will text it to me. We'll get the question answered. Could you say your name? Sure.
Hi, Ms. Dudley. My name is Louise Levy. My question is about the rapid response team and program. Can I call 911 and have, when I articulate what the reason that I'm calling is, and if it's I'm concerned about this person, does 911 know to send that to the rapid response team?
No.
Okay, so if I may, you probably dealt with this already, but I don't have the bandwidth to remember 3 numbers. I, like, for mental health crises, I want to be able to call 911 and know that they turn that to 811, I guess.
Yeah.
So is there a conversation about being able to just have one number to remember, that 911, and know that it's going to go to the rapid crisis response team, not the police?
Yes, so there's 2 parts to that, because our rapid response team is not rapid as the crisis response team. So our rapid response team ourselves, we get it when nobody else listens, is my best way to describe it. So my first case ever that I got with the rapid response team was in the rapid response team. It's about 3 people. And we got a call from a mom at Myers-Wilkins. And she was like, hey, my kid is about to go to truancy court. For those of you who don't know, Myers-Wilkins, that's elementary. They're about to go to truancy court because she refused to bring her kid to school. Well, the reason she refused to bring her kid to school was because an employee at the school had given her kids drugs in a baggie. And I'm not talking about like the stuff that's legal now. I'm talking prescription drugs like codeine, and I forget what the other one was called, but they were pills, and it was mixed in with candy. And the faculty claimed that it was a mistake, that the baggie was for her husband because he has diseases that he uses for them. But regardless, they were drugs that were given to an elementary student, and she had brought them home and was eating the candy out of it, and the mom had just happened to notice what looked like pills in there. Brought it to the doctor, the pediatrician, or not even the pediatrician, she went into urgent care and brought it in there, and that's when they identified it. They called the police. Police took a report, but that was it. Called the school took a report, and she never heard back from them again. So for her safety of her student, she pulled her child out and did not bring them back, and it was an issue for the school. So that was the first case we got. So that's the type of case we got. When the NAACP were involved, we went to the school, we spoke with them, that member of the staff was then fired, and she felt comfortable to bring her student back to school. But it wasn't until we got involved that they did something. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of more of the cases we work when people don't listen. The crisis line is more like, if you see something, say something immediately. And while we work closely with HGC, who holds our crisis line right now, the organization that runs it, and won the RFP for it, we don't, like, if you call them, they don't call us and let us know, right? Because it's not always an issue about racial discrimination. It might just need to be, somebody needs to be helped. And in this case, you know, the mom felt and suspected like there was racial discrimination because her child was African heritage. I cannot like say that that is true or that is false. I can only speak from her experience and my experience, but the experience nonetheless was ignored. And so that's kind of when we get involved. So we do have Know Your Right cards that we pass out at our events. You'll see them at MLK and the Freedom Fund Dinner. Those Know Your Rights cards do have our crisis response number on it, and also other contacts to contact in the emergency situations. We pass them out at schools, We pass them out at events, we have them at our office. So, and take a stack of them, pass them out when you're around, and keep one for yourself. Keep 2 for yourself. If you're feeling greedy, take 3.
Are you ready for?
Yeah,
question?
go ahead.
This isn't a question, it's just a FYI that in February, the crisis response team is gonna do a forum here. For people that are they're interested in that and knowing what that is, somebody from HDC is gonna come.
Yes, that is great. And they do trainings too, which is awesome.
Hey there, my name is Therese Presley. Thank you for being here. I just did you get to see Duluth for Mandela yesterday at the Zeitgeist?
No, I did not. So
I just want to say, Jerry Williams, the director, producer, really gave a shout out to NAACP for your support. I think you should hear that. And it was packed. They even had to put up extra chairs. So there was great attendance. And I just want to say thank you to you. You were in that movie quite a bit showing up. Yeah.
awesome. We need that same turnout for our Freedom Fund dinner. Please, please, if that's a good plug for our Freedom Fund dinner, it is happening February 10th at the deck here. We have an amazing speaker. He's we're trying to get the young folks out. He's a TikTok star, Conscious Lead. He's also been nominated for NAACP Image Awards for his work in social justice and advocacy. We also have a couple bands playing that you might have heard of, the Gemstones and Your Eve. So we're super excited to have that. And our proceeds that are going for that event is for Ignite, Empower, and Transform. Ignite, Empower, Transform is a 501c3 that came out of the work that the NAACP is doing to support not only the NAACP, but also to support the issues that we saw internally that our community was facing. And a lot of it was the welcoming. How many have you felt that distance since COVID? That distance has been here before COVID, especially for communities of color. I often tell people, where can I get my hair done? Because I still have to go to the cities, right? Like I haven't been able to go in a long time, and my hair, you can tell it's looking like it, right? Like, where do they go to praise whatever Lord they praise, right? Where do we go to get the ethnic food that we're used to eating? Where do we go to see the art that we can create that looks like us, that reflects us? We don't see that here. So a lot of that proceed is going to creating that welcoming center for people, because if you do not feel welcomed by your community, you will burn this community to feel that warmth. And we rather have people get the resource they need with us and within our community than leave or find something else that is not healthy for them and not healthy and uplifting for our community, right? Like, it affects us all, right? We talk about these issues that we're having in our community, right? Sometimes they're code language for racial slang, right? Like derogatory racial things. And what it really is that we're not willing to give up funds or to give up time or to give up our comfort to help people who need to be helped. So they're getting lost. And we would like to be proactive, not reactive. So this is a way that the NAACP and Ignite, Empower, Transform can be proactive, not reactive to the issues that we're seeing in our community and the pain we're seeing.
So I would love to get a group together to go to the Freedom Fund dinner. It's a fundraiser. There's a lot of good work that it's gonna raise money to support. So I will send out a little bit more info on that opportunity and see if we can put something together, because it sounds like a lot of fun also.
Yes.
More questions in the room here?
My name is Carl Leonard. I have a simple question. To what extent are you involved in housing issues like landlord stuff and things like that, complaints?
Yeah, so we actually, so all of our like landlord tenant stuff comes through our rapid response right now because we don't have a committee dedicated to housing. We do have committee dedicated to housing. We don't have anybody willing to take the lead on that committee dedicating to housing. Mind you all, it's a volunteer organization and I feel like when I come to these groups and I say, hey, we need volunteers, he's like, this is scary. I don't know if this is for me. No, this is me telling you, this is for you. This is for you. I'm telling you, this is for you. I don't care what they say. If they come and they're like, wow, Classy, you have an environmental committee and they're all white. I don't care. Are they doing the work of the NAACP? Good. I want to hear anything else. And I'll go to bat for that. The last NAACP convention, we brought, before the last NAACP convention, the second to last NAACP convention we went to, one in 2022, we brought AXO students from all different backgrounds, all different races. We had a committee of at least 6 people going, as well as our AXO students, and they were so excited to see us. They were like, Classy, we need to get you to speak to the larger body of not only the region, but the national, because we want to see how you guys get people who are not Black involved. We've been trying to do it, but it's hard. It's hard enough to get our people involved because they're already struggling, right? Not only, I'll give you one more example of this before I finish this one story, but we need people there. I don't care what you look like, I don't care your age, I don't care your religion, the denomination, I need you there. I need you there. That's how we are so strong. We are strong in numbers, and we're strong because we show up when it matters. We show up to vote, we show up to support, we show up to love. And that's what we need in this community. So, the other thing that I was gonna say is that we have our criminal justice committee, right? And our criminal justice committee puts on our decriminalized color event, right, every year. Or the last few years to try to get rid of pretextual stops. That was an initiative of that event every year. And the last 2 years we did it, I was talking to my members of the NAACP who are Black men. And I said, hello, where are you? You are not at the front. You are not on stage. You are not speaking. You're in the back. Why are you in the back? Right? I was like, I don't understand that. You're making everybody else do the work. Like, what's going on? And I remember one of our members stopped me and he said, well, it's not that I don't want to be in the back. I'm here. I don't feel safe. I stand up there, I'm targeted. I stand up there, I might lose my job. My job doesn't believe in this. And I can't afford to quit right now or be fired, right? I've been pulled over 3 times in the past 3 months. And I think if I go on stage and they see my face fighting this legislation or fighting this for this policy, that I will be a target. He's like, there's not many of us here, they can identify us. And so I had a whole new understanding of what it means to be a person of color and be in this fight. And that's why it's like now more than ever that I'm like, hey, we need our allies to not just be allies, we need them to be the NAACP. We need them to be part of our family, right? I've built relationships here that will never be broken because we've experienced the same type of trauma, even though it hasn't been even trauma affected on us, right? We've just experienced seeing it from people in our community who've experienced it. So when I say, we need you to show up, we got to have more people show up. You guys have kids, right? Make them show up too.
Yeah.
Brothers, siblings, have them show up. Friends, book groups, have them show up. Have them read a great book about race and then have them show up. right? Like that's what we need. And so to answer, I mean, this is a long answer to your question, Carl, I'm sorry, but we do work on housing issues. That when they created that third floor and they kicked everybody out to make a hotel, we fought against that without having a committee, right? We went there and passed out flyers to people who were in that building to say, hey, here are the resources, and if you need extra, here we are. Even if you guys don't want, because that's one thing that's hard for us. I'm a fighter. I will dig my heels in for you. But what do you want? Do you want me to dig your heels in for you? Or do you want to just find a new place to live, right? Because that's also what we're up against too. So we need a housing committee. We are involved in housing issues here. It is a huge issue in our organization and within the community, but we don't have a dedicated committee to it yet. Maybe that'll change today. Yes, but so just for, I'll just go really quickly here and say that the way that our committees had started off is I got the gentleman who is the foundation president of the National NAACP. He also wrote the strategic plan for the National NAACP. He came here for Duluth and helped us create our strategic plan. That was about 3 years ago. And when we did our research, our community engagement, and our own power mapping of our city, we saw that our biggest issues at that time were education, health and environment, criminal justice, and economics. And those were the 4 core committees we started. We also started engagement committees, such as our fundraising committees, our events committees, and our social justice, our young adults committee, to get more people engaged and involved. And also AXA, which is for high school students who, whatever they're interested in, at whatever time and point, they can do a project. They're interested in art, they can draw something, right? They're interested in poetry, they can do a poem. They're interested in theater, they can recite a play. They're interested in business, they can write their business plan and show it to us, right? Anything they're interested in, it's a competition. They compete within their category. And the winners not only get scholarships, but they get flown out to the National NAACP to compete. So that's just some of what we do here. And could we be doing more? Absolutely. But is that on me? I think that's on we. So that's some of the stuff we're working on here. Any more questions?
You have dual roles in NAACP, community action, and I'm wondering how they fit together, because I think community action's been pretty proactive, often especially around housing and other things. And how do you manage that, and how do you see the difference in those roles?
Yeah, great question. I think the difference is bureaucracy. With the NAACP, I have a little more freedom to be proactive in the fight for justice. I think with community action, it is a huge organization, right? We are not only a 501c3, not a 501c4, but a 501c3. And we also are a government subsidy organization. So community action agencies were created by President Lyndon B. Johnson to fight the war on poverty. And he created them all over the country. And because they were created by the government, there is Roma standards that we have to apply, that we have to go by. And that's a lot of paperwork. A lot of meetings, a lot of board meetings, a lot of great stuff. I would say because of community action, we are able to get a lot more funding that allows us to do a lot of work. And guess what? I have paid staff. So that paid staff can do a lot more work in designated times. Whereas at NAACP, we have to do this after work and undesignated times as volunteers. So I see strengths in both organizations and I see weaknesses in both organizations. Where they combine is our mission. We have the same mission, and it's really to uplift our community and help our people here. And if we're not doing that, we're failing our community. And right now, I feel like in order to uphold that mission, I have to get people in our community activated. And I feel like that is a struggle everywhere, but that is a struggle here too. It's really easy to show up once a month for our meetings. How do I get more people there? What would get more people there? You know, maybe that's a question that I gotta ask you guys, like, what would get you there? You know, I can't pay you, you know, but what would get us there? What would get us there to rallies? What would get us there to get the Freedom Fund banquet? What would get us there to volunteer our times? I get that we don't have time, but I can't tap into the community who's also fighting poverty to fight for themselves. I can have them use their voices, but I can't have them always show up when they're also struggling, right? And we've done it. We've had forums where we get childcare, where we get transportation, where we pay them a stipend, where we have food at the event. But that isn't sustainable. What's sustainable is getting a large group of people and meeting at City Hall and forcing them to change pretextual stops, right? That's the chain of events we're looking to happen.
We have just a little bit more time here for our official program. I wonder if you're willing to stay a little longer, President Dudley. Like, we have 15 minutes, and so people wanted to approach you after this, after we wrap up here and just talk. That'd be great. We have not yet gotten questions from the chat, except someone wanted the crisis response number, and I sort of pasted that in there. Do you have it handy as well?
No, I don't.
Okay, I can. I'll have it on my phone over there. But so I wanted to just make one more plug for the MLK events next week. If you are interested in going as part of a UUCD contingent or volunteering, there's info in the Connect, and you can contact me. I'm in the directory if you don't have my contact information, Meredith Cornett. And I'm going to go to each of the events, and so if there's one that appeals to you more than others, we can team up and go.
Meredith, are you thinking like a group and we'll carry the banner? Or
Oh, I didn't even, I'm a newbie, I didn't even know we had a banner, so I mean, sure.
Can I chime in there too? So this year, like many events, the police are charging us to do our rally in our march. We've gotten a lot of response on that. So they wanted $4,000 for us to do a rally from here to the deck. Yes, absolutely. So we are not paying. We didn't feel in our hearts of hearts that it was just for the MLK event to be paying police to show up and block off the streets for us for our rally. You know, we even did our own research to see, like, does that make it safer? And there was no research showing that police presence at these events make it safer. So we decided not to, you know, officially block off the streets. But we will be still doing the march. It'll just be more designated towards sidewalks. And if it spills on the streets, so be it. It's a protest now.
Okay, so if we are now at 10:15, let's take a moment here before we thank President Dudley. I want to just make sure everyone knows that next week, January 14th, our forum speaker is Rachel Myslivsky, the National Climate Justice Organizer for the UU's Side with Love Organizing Strategy Team. Their goal is to strengthen our capacity as UUs to organize for justice and to mobilize power and people for liberation. So join us next week. There's a lot going on next week. And thank you so much,